welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The Amazonian struggle for liberation stands as a defining chapter in the quest for self-determination, justice, and the preservation of human dignity and the preservation of human lives. Decades of systemic oppression, marginalization, and the erosion of sovereignty have culminated in a devastating conflict, exacting a profound human toll. Civilians have borne the brunt of these senseless war, with lives lost, communities torn apart, and countless families plunged into grief. This escalating human cost highlights the urgent need for an end to the violence and a sustainable resolution to the conflict. Amid this adversity, the Ambazonian government, under the leadership of President Samuel Mbeseha, continues to demonstrate resolve and strategic foresight by leveraging diplomatic opportunities and fostering international alliances. The administration is taking concrete steps to advance the liberation agenda. Recent efforts emphasize aligning with global powers and creating pathways for meaningful dialogue and collaborations to end the conflict. As the fight for freedom persists, the resilience of the Ambazonian people and the proactive leadership of their government reflect an unyielding commitment to justice and peace. The journey towards liberation may be fraught with challenges, but the determination to bring an end to the suffering and chart a future of dignity and self-determination remains unwavering. Let's get into the full briefings of Undaunted tonight, coming right up after we take the prime headlines. And these are the prime headlines of Undaunted tonight. Tragedy in Mba Plain, Undu, with civilians caught in deadly attack on Colonial soldiers. We also see the Ambazonian Concave, the meeting over the weekend, and the human cost of the Ambazonian war, as two seem to be in critical state on the home front. On the African scene, we see Somaliland's presidential elections and a significant development unfolding in the Ukraine-Russian conflict on the global scene. Let's get the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. Well, since the systemic annexation of southern Cameroon in 1961, the colonial regime of La République has pursued a calculated agenda to erase the heritage and identity of the Amazonian people. This campaign has manifested in various forms, from the imposition of foreign administrative structures to the infiltration of cultural practices. Once a vibrant and distinct cultural entity, Ambazonia now stands at the precipice of cultural extinction. The deliberate imposition of foreign customs, coupled with military occupation, has disrupted traditional systems, leaving the Ambazonian people to defend their culture, territory, and identity with unwavering resolve. It is in this context that the Ambazonian State Army, under the command of Major General Tolkien Du, has emerged as a formidable force dedicated to safeguarding Ambazonia's heritage and traditions. The recent ban on colonial cultural festivities is the latest defiant act against assimilation, aimed at preserving the authenticity of Ambazonian culture. The government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia has reaffirmed the ban on all cultural festivities organized under the directives of the colonial regime within the Ambazonian territory. In a recent announcement, it was emphasized that these bans remain in full effect and will be enforced by the Ambazonian National Self-Defense Council, the ANSC, in collaboration with the Ambazonian State Army, the ASA. No lockdown dates have been set yet, but the ANSC has made it clear that if necessary, lockdown measures will be implemented. Organizers of these events, as well as those making financial contributions to support them, have been warned of the consequences of their actions. Among the targeted events are the Ungonso Festival, scheduled to take place at the Unso Palace in Kumbo local government area of Buyi County from November 27th to December 4th, 2024, and the, quote, All Southwest Chiefs Festival, all initiated by the colonial regime. Let's see what Commander Wheelie has to say about this.
Today is Saturday, the 2nd of November 2024. You are on with the Buyi Warriors ASA under the stewardship of Major General Tok Anadu, who doubles as the Supreme Commander for the Buyi Warriors ASA. Coming up, the position of the Ambazonians.
Shake no day. Fellow Ambazonians, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. With the great winner, we can give an update on Saiwo Day for this revolution. Remember, Papa them. They bring this important announcement for home front. We want to listen and listen well. At this time of war time, come for tell and say.
That's a promise I've told the Lord.
Yes, remember Papa them. The answer is no. We come for tell and say this so the following festivals and festival Ambazonia don't be banned. The federal government will don't ban all festivals and as such, I come for remind one again. Say the one way they want to organize them from so what they call it Ngonso festival, it don't be banned. And the other one way we ban again, and the one way it won't be organized by the chiefs for Southwest, what they call it Southwest Chief Conference, it don't be banned. For next week, the federal government of Ambazonia, it will come put a lockdown, it will tell the lockdown will be, it will give a date on how the lockdown will be, and that way it will end. So next week, when I expect the federal government of Ambazonia, we can tell about the lockdown way it is from. We can give a head up, we want to be aware. We know what she done, we leave some fake chiefs where they don't take money for the Republic, they work with the Republic for can make festival. They are aiming for make this festival them, go show them for white people that see this so all things they will come back to normal. And then they convince white people them. Meanwhile, they go the pass with the army them kind of carry they will for war. Any person where you want to organize this festival or you participate for this festival where this colonial chiefs they want to organize them, it is at their own risk. When Ambazonian State Army they will be at alert, they will punish you on site, they will punish you during and they will punish you after. So make you understand them. I do want to give a head up. Say this so the government will announce lockdown, it will announce them next week. It will announce them from next week for Teuna. That way the lockdown they go start. It not go be the next week. It go tell now that the lockdown will be closer to tell the Colonial for the one make their festival. They say their first festival it will start on the 27th of November. So around that time, government will put a lockdown. And the other one they get festival where they want make them again, where they want to go be for December, around December the 13th and 14th. Government for Ambazonia, it will work with that schedule for put a lockdown for this period. So we will keep our eye open. As Cameroon there for tight spot, we will keep them for that tight spot. So any light that they like white people them, they go be to the contrary. Now, number 2, announce any person will be work with Ayaba, make it run in height. I will tell anybody will work with Ayaba. For example, Grandpa Bali will be work with Ayaba, make it run in height because Cameroon government they try to kill all people them where they don't work with Ayaba for height evidence. So any person where they work with Ayaba, make it find a place in height. Because Cameroon government they try to kill all of them, no matter what. Now when they come to tell all Ambazonian State Army say wanna be ready, the days ahead, so that when this order will come, the lockdown will go for the 13th county. If they get any festival for Bamenda, automatically the lockdown will be for the 13th county. If they get any festival for Boya, automatically the lockdown will be for the 13th county. So anytime they want to make some occasion like this, lockdown will be for the whole territory because Ambazonia is a country. Nobody will come misplace us. With the great now, I will say Shishingode when I keep an eye open. Until then, they're gonna stay blessed. thank all Ambazonia State Army, all the mobile wings them, for the work they do. Nobody match them, they go. She's shaking all day.
Well, the Ambazonian State Army, under the leadership of Major General Tolkendu, has released statements supported by that audio and video communications explicitly banning the upcoming Ngonso cultural activities that has been organized from the colonial regime's den. Well, these activities planned to occur in Nso Palace are viewed by the Ambazonian State Army as an extension of La Republique's effort to infiltrate and assimilate the Nso culture under the guise of cultural festivities. Well, in the statement of the ASA spokesperson emphasized that sons and daughters of Nso will not silently watch as the Nso culture is imported like a package from neighboring La Republique and then taken back. Well, they argued that for such a festival to be considered legitimate, it must be organized and planned by the rightful custodian of the Nso culture, the Fon of Nso, His Royal Majesty El Haj Sem Mbinglo I, free from military interference and in collaboration with the Nso community. Well, the Ambazonian State Army clarified that this ban is not an attack on the traditions or culture of Nso, but a reaffirmation of their authenticity. They contend that any event organized under the influence of La Republique and is militarized backing cannot represent the true spirit of the Nso culture.
Today is Saturday, the 2nd of November 2024. You are on with the Bui Warriors ASA under the stewardship of Major General Tok Anadu, who doubles as the Supreme Commander for the Bui Warriors ASA. Coming up, the position of the Ambazonian State Army on the issue of the Nso Cultural Festival of November 27 till December 4, 2024. The Ambazonian State Army for Bui and Nso in particular state here in unequivocal terms that there will be no cultural festival in Nso as earlier announced by Nsoda. The ASA is unambiguous in declaring that what Nsoda and their master La République du Cameroon have planned is a clear declaration of war in Bui and Nso land for those dates and beyond. There is no normalcy in Bui and Nso, for the war rages on and the death toll, destruction of human lives, properties keep rising. The occupational army of La République du Cameroon are responsible for this state of affairs. The Ambazonia State Army for Bui and Nso land are ready for the bloodshed Nsoda has prepared. Make no mistakes, for the answer will be appropriate. Order. What is different now is that for 7 years running, no cultural festival was organized. The custodian of these activities on September 19, 2024 said something terrible will happen to Nso people in his lifetime. The question is it now that the right time has come for his ill promise to be fulfilled? It is clear that this so-called cultural festival is politically instigated for politicians to make their private gains. Nsoda, what did you ever say or do when the monster La République du Cameroon slaughtered and is still slaughtering sons and daughters of Bui and Nso? You complacently kept quiet and are still quiet as the cruelty continues by the day. What kind of leaders are you? What developments do you pretend to bring to Bui and Nso? Who are the people to benefit when La République is making sure no one remains alive? Nsoda has now collected blood money from La République du Cameroon to contribute during this bloody occasion in order to deceive Nso people. When the Fon of Nso left the palace, the Ambazonia State Army called him to come back to the palace, and he refused and would not come back. Whenever he visited Nso, he would be in the company of heavily armed La République Army. He became a La République military officer. What does Nsoda think about this? The Ambazonia State Army assures you all that the cultural festival will be a non-event. Long live the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Short live the struggle.
Well, inasmuch as the ASA has given their thoughts and says no to this colonial organized ceremony, there has been resistance from the colonial regime and its organizers. The colonial regime, through its festival organizers and spokesperson, MKPD, My Country People Them, a controversial advocate whom many Ambazonians tag a blackleg, has vowed to proceed with the festivities, citing the involvement of the La Republic military to enforce security. The organizers argue that the fun of Unso has been repeatedly detained by Ambazonian forces and requires protection. However, the Ambazonian State Army has dismissed these claims, welcoming the fun back to Unso Palace on the condition that no La Republic military presence accompanies him. While in a defiant tone, the Ambazonian State Army declared that the Unso Palace would become a battleground should any La Republic military force attempt to enforce this festival. The popular sentiment in Boye County is summed up in the phrase, "try and see," a warning that reflects the determination of the Ambazonian State Army and the local population to resist any colonial interference. Oh well, this bold stance by the Ambazonian State Army underscores their commitment to preserving Ambazonian culture in the face of systemic erasure by opposing events like the Ungaso organized by the colonial regime, which they view as tools of cultural imperialism, as the ASA and the Ambazonian State Army aims to protect the authenticity of their traditions and assert their sovereignty over their cultural heritage. Major General Tolkien Du's leadership has become symbolic. It has become symbolic of this defiance, and the Ambazonian States Army's actions resonate across Ambazonia as a call to resist assimilation and uphold the identity of the Ambazonian people. Well, this act of cultural protection, far from being a simple rejection of festivities, it is a declaration of independence, asserting Ambazonia's rights to determine its cultural future, free from external, especially colonial influences. Well, we have in the studios with us Barrister Team Mbeseha. Good evening, Barrister Team.
Good evening to all of you.
All right, you're once again
And thank you
welcome
for
to the
having me.
program. Now, looking at this particular report, we see the ASA not just protecting the territory of Ambazonia, they are as well protecting Ambazonia heritage and especially traditions. We've seen time and time before the colonial regime trying to infiltrate into Ambazonian norms and traditions. Once upon a time, not too long ago, it was the colonial regime trying to choose a fun of a certain village, choose a fun for the peoples of Ambazonia, something that was never known in history. And then now we're seeing the colonial regime being the one to organize Ambazonian festivities. What are your thoughts about this and the reaction from the Ambazonian State Army? What would you say about this?
Now, let me say this. The reaction, first and foremost, from the Ambazonian Defense Forces, and most particularly those in the Bui, it's very, very symbolic. It's important that this seems to be the only people who now represent us culturally. You see, Ambazonia has different cultures, ethnic groups, but the practices cut across the board. Whether it be in Mamfe, dealing with the Calabar people who cut over to Mamfe, be it in Momo, be it in Meme, be it in Donga Mantu, be it anywhere, the cultures are the same. What is going on, or what they promise to do, call it cultural festival, is pure propaganda from the colonial administrators and so on and so forth. These cultures are mentioned have cultural celebrations. But what is a cultural celebration? A festival is meant to celebrate something great, something important, at least just a blessing from God, that you have had a period of time of peace, you have delivered twins, you have had other multiplicity of positivity. And so what is the Ngongso coming to celebrate in Bui in particular? All of us know for the past 80 years, there has been war in Ambazonia. But above all, Bui is the epic center where they have lost so many of theirs in the face of this war, where they have been killed by Republic soldiers. directly and indirectly. That is Bui, where the fun fled, escaped through the back door to his hiding place in Yaoundé. And he's trying to come back through the front door with a celebration. What are they celebrating in a cultural festival? The deaths of those children in Bui, in Garbu, and other places around there. Or what? Nothing to celebrate. And on the different note, you will discover that Bui, which is called Nso, is a cultural haven to our culture. But when the colonial administrators came, they came with their religion, Christianity. Christianity is very, very active in Bui. You find the Baptists, the Presbyterians, and the Catholics who will have a bishop sitting right there. If there must be anything, I thought the fund should have been calling on these religious organizations to join them to pray for the loss of their own children, for the unjustified killing of their own kids, of their own kids and kin. That would have made sense. But they're not doing it. And so, what are they celebrating? Is it time for them to celebrate? No. If they must celebrate, do they need the gendarmes and the police and the bees? Certainly not. Let us transition to what is proposed to go on in the so-called Southwest. These so-called chiefs, I call them so chiefs. I've come from the royal family myself. But those people postulating that type of nonsense are chiefs only by name. Otherwise, what are they celebrating? What are they planning to celebrate? The killing of the children in Kumba? The Kwakwa massacres? The killing of children in Boya? What are they going to celebrate? The jobless CDC workers going for years, 60, 55 months without salaries? They burnt down Sonara, even though it's still symbolically as in the Southwest. What are they celebrating? The war is ravaging. And they don't want to celebrate. They ought not to celebrate. They ought to be saying, let us put an end to this. They ought to pray in their own form. And again, the Southwest again. But they're going to celebrate this in what they call Southwest. They have a whole Catholic a bishop in Mamfe, another bishop in Kumba, another in Boya. I just saw them having an election to the Synod president, to the president moderator. The headquarters of the Presbyterian Church is in Boya. And so they can converge and make prayers and ask for redemption and ask for forgiveness and ask for God to come down and help these people stop the war by bringing all these religious organizations together, put in their own local efforts, and hopefully God will listen to them. Not to go celebrate and drink and eat and go home with money given to them. It is a total aberration of what we call celebration. Because again, there's nothing to celebrate in the Southwest, let us call it like that, or in the Northwest, let us put it like that, or in summary, in Ambazonia. There's everything to regret. There's everything to pray for peace. There's everything to pray for the end of the war. And such prayer don't go by celebrations, by videos, by CRTV, taking videos apparently to send to the United Nations and other organizations to show normalcy. It's a disgrace. Those who are doing it, directly or indirectly, it's a disgrace. Even our brothers and sisters who sit in Yaoundé and say they are government ministers. We've had the opportunity many times before to sit here. We see what's going on there. To call on the so-called Minister of Secondary Education, who in the first place is a Southwesterner, is an Ambazonian, who caused this war in the first place. He invited the military to come and rape their own daughters. That's an old woman who has grandchildren. She has not regretted. I hope she will tell her cab and come to that celebration somewhere in Limbe. It's a shame. All these old people sitting there, Mosonge, they are no less than 80 years old. They have great-grandchildren. Tabe Tando is the chief. Kembong happened in Banyu. And all those places. Why are they celebrating? The burning down of the church in Ibisamabang? That's nonsense. Should be ashamed of themselves. But since we cannot pray for God to punish them, we can pray that God should change their minds. Since I brought in prayer
Right,
there.
Mbeseha, so would you agree that this is part of the assimilation strategy of the colonial regime by slowly but steadily involving themselves in Amazonian culture to be in the one, so much that they're the ones now fixing the dates for Ambazonian celebrations? Do you think this is one step at a time into the infiltration of Ambazonian traditions?
No. It is not one step at a time. It is a violent invasion of our culture. It's violent. Before I came on here, I saw them arguing something, a chief in Guti. And I'm instead of coming there, well, we have a chief. I've appointed one. That's a violent invasion of our culture, not even progressive. They are not doing it progressively. They are doing it violently. They are trying to assimilate, or they have failed to assimilate us gradually for the past 50 years. Now they have to hasten it, do it by force in the next 6 months to prove legitimacy, to prove elections in 6 months, that we took part, that we are part of them. It's a violent assimilation of our culture. And again, let me remind ourselves, cultural assimilation is a crime against humanity, punishable under international law. Once you efface or eliminate the culture of a people, because that's what makes them a people, you have culturally committed a crime. That's cultural genocide. And so it is a crime. We don't want to accept it. We will accept it. Even if we won't accept it, even if they bring their military bill and stage a celebration in Victoria, in Kumbo, or anywhere else, we will not accept it because our cultural celebrations are not evidenced by the presence of the military. That's a lie. That's our ASA, I mean to say, are encouraged to do whatever it is possible to make sure they stop it. If they must come and celebrate it over their dead bodies, so be it. Over to you.
All right, Barrister Mbeseha, well, we all know that once Ambazonia regains her stolen independence, all of this is going to come to an end. And speaking of the ongoing war in Ambazonia, the ongoing Amazonian liberation struggle has once again revealed its devastating toll on human lives, sadly. A tragic ambush on Sunday, November 17th, in the Mbol plain of Undu in the savannah zone of the Federal Republic of Amazonia. Ambazonia claimed the lives of 3 people, a soldier of the La République du Cameroon and 2 innocent civilians. Another civilian remains in critical condition, highlighting the urgent need for peace in the conflict reading former British Southern Cameroons. While the attack occurred along the Undu-Magba road, where civilians unknowingly offered a ride to an undercover La République gendarme officer. Eyewitnesses described the harrowing sequence of events. According to an eyewitness, we were driving with Nyong, the owner of the vehicle. When we reached Mbal, this man asked for a lift to Wade. We had no idea he was a gendarme officer. One survivor recounted this shortly after armed separatists ambushed the vehicle. Amid the chaos, gunfires erupted. The gendarme officer, upon realizing the danger, fired his weapon before jumping out of the vehicle. This led to a deadly exchange of bullets. Nyong was hit in the arm and stomach. The gendarme officer and another passenger were killed instantly. These were recount informations from the witness. Well, Nyong, along with another civilian, Jang Fred, were rushed to a hospital in the West region. Tragically, Nyong succumbed to his injuries, bringing the civilian death toll to 2. The Amazonian State Army, aligned with leader Samuel Ikome Sako, has since claimed responsibility for the ambush, which they view as part of their broader resistance against colonial forces. The grief-stricken community has condemned the violence, calling for urgent measures to protect civilian lives and prevent further bloodshed. According to a local sympathizer, they said, "We must ensure the safety of our people." This incident underscores the devastating human cost of the war and the peril faced daily by innocent civilians crossed in the crossfire. Well, as Amazonian State Army will always say that they would not harm a civilian, but would instead protect the Ambazonian civilians. But then it is a sad tragedy that amidst the course, to defend homeland and Ambazonians, this sad and tragic incident occurs, having a human cost of the ongoing war. The death of Theophilus Nyong and others is a painful reminder of the lives lost and families shattered by a conflict rooted in decades of unresolved grievances. The ongoing war has plunged Amazonia into a state of perpetual fear and grief, claiming countless lives and forcing thousands to flee their homes. The tragic events in Mbo are not isolated, but part of a larger pattern of violence and continues to ravage the region, the nation of Ambazonia. The time has come for stakeholders to prioritize dialogue, peaceful resolutions over conflict until the war in Amazonia comes to an end. More lives, more human lives, will inevitably be lost, perpetuating the cycle of grief and suffering. The world cannot indeed remain indifferent to the plight of Ambazonians, and urgent action is required to bring this humanitarian crisis to a just end. The Mbo tragedy serves only as a poignant call for peace, a plea to end the war before more lives are lost to a cause that continues to exact a heavy toll on humanity. Well, Barrister Mbeseha, before you go, would like to hear your thoughts on this report. Yet again, another human life, a cost of the ongoing war in Ambazonia.
Yes, it is one like others, but it's important because this is happening in Bo. Bo is in Ndu. Ndu is Ndonga Mountain Division. Ndu is the headquarters of Mr. Gerard's people, who is used to having his vigilante go down to Tongarbo and burn their corpses. Ndu is home to Gerard, who has been preaching normalcy everywhere. And so it is a reminder that no place in Ambazonia is safe. The enemy is developing different tactics, thinking that changing uniform and putting them in the bag and riding private to bikes is an excuse. Now, you are not an enemy just because you wear the uniform. You are an enemy because you perform illegal acts. Because you wear the uniform, you remove it, you're still an enemy. But bottom line, what we can say is, if one of us is caught in the crossfire, like this young man, all we can do is to say sorry for that. We feel bad about that. There's so much generalized insecurity everywhere in Ambazonia. And if you permit me, I will take us a little bit back. 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? 2 days ago, I think, we were talking about the death of the deer of Idabatu. We saw pictures of his so-called death. Maybe he's not dead. But that thing followed an event which I want us to recollect first. There was this conference in Geneva on human rights. Talk about human rights. But what's important there is, one of us that we know, Wazizi, who was taken live from Buya, taken to Yaoundé, tortured, killed, eaten, whatever thing they did to his corpse, they took out his bones and so, we don't know. And this question came up at the Geneva hearing. And interestingly, the government of the Republic of Cameroon said, chapter closed. Case has been closed. Closed how? We don't know. I say we don't know where they ate him or they roasted him, they saw out his bones and organs. We have no idea. How can the chapter be closed? But we bring it back to the Deus on. If we sit here and say what we say, it is that no Ambazonian life will go unaccountable for. The family, friends, and sympathizers of the duo want his body, want him back dead or alive. It is the responsibility of Yaoundé to bring him back dead or alive, to bring closure to these things. And so when we argue on the duo, when I him, we're just doing it public. Otherwise, the duo, one a guy, will become Wazizi, chapter closed, when nobody explains what happened to him. And as we know, as I've said already, in this modern world, people die, yes. People are killed, yes. but corpses are valuable in that their organs can be sold. Their bones can be sold for money. They can be used for other medicines culturally. And so the death or not death of Uwane, the Dio, must be accounted for. If we say he's there and it's a mistake, we want him alive. If it's true, bring his dead body alive, dead, and then the family will bury him and bring closure to it. And so that is what I wanted us to look back a little bit. Because sometimes we say these things here, people go, they are telling things without evidence. No, we don't need to have evidence. Our goal is to bring pressure to bear on his people who took him there. The people sent him to Idabato. The people refused to pay ransom or to negotiate his return. Life, alive or dead. And so that's important. And so that's the purpose we do it. For those who misunderstand us, that is the clear reason why we do it. No Ambazonian guy, for those of us, those who die like the one you have just shown in Bo, who bury him and will bring closure to it, who offer a mass or a prayer, say, well, he's dead and buried. His children, if he has, will grow up to see where their parents, father and mother was buried. But again, taking the cue from what the people said of Wazizi, whom they adopted, they agreed, it's not a mistake. They took him to Yaoundé, they agree on that. But where he is, they say he's dead, we don't see his dead body. And they tell the world, they don't tell us Ambazonians, they tell the world because we're not in Geneva. They tell the world, chapter closed. No, sir. The chapter of Wazizi, the chapter of Iwane, and others who have died under your guard is not going to be closed like that. We'll fight and fight until we get the information. Even if it is assuming the dead bodies of some of you who perpetrated the acts and punishing them after they are dead, we would gladly do it. Over to you.
All right, Mbeseha, all of this at the end of the day is for Ambazonia to look for a way for the war to come to an end, and which is why Ambazonians' leadership, the leadership of the Ambazonian government, has time and time again made diplomatic strides to ensure that the war is reaching a conclusive, just end. We saw that over the weekend. Something remarkable happened, a very remarkable conclave. We know, first of all, that the Amazonian struggle for liberation is a testament to the resilience of a people determined to reclaim their identity and autonomy, rooted in decades of marginalization, systemic injustices, and the erosion of Ambazonia's sovereignty. The fight for Ambazonia's independence has become a symbol of resistance against oppression. From peaceful protest to armed conflict, the journey has been marked by sacrifices, immeasurable human cost, and a steadfast commitment to the cause. But the liberation movement is more than a battle for territory. It is a fight for justice, dignity, and the right to self-determination. As the Amazonian people strive to carve a new chapter in their history, their struggle serves as a reminder of the enduring spirit of those who refuse to be silenced in the face of adversity. Now, this past weekend, Ambazonian held a significant gathering in Washington, D.C., drawing attendees from across the globe, including France, South America, and Asia. The event, mandated to be an in-person meeting by Ambazonian President Samuel Sako, emphasized the importance of direct engagement during this critical time. The Ambazonian government is leveraging the transition of power in Washington to align its objectives with the incoming United States administration. A series of high-level meetings over the weekend demonstrated the government's strategic focus and its commitment to advancing its liberation agenda on the international stage. The conference began with the Amazonian National Security Council meeting, the ANSC meeting on Saturday, which followed by sessions involving county chairs and departmental representatives the next day on Sunday. Concurrently, a defense conclave spanned both days, bringing together key stakeholders to address pressing issues. While much of the discussions remained confidential, the primary focus was on ensuring a smooth transition in relations with the United States leadership and exploring collaborative opportunities. Now, this successful gathering highlights Ambazonia's preparedness to strengthen global partnerships and solidify its position during this pivotal time in its liberation struggle. In a time of heightened global attention, the gathering underscores Ambazonia's readiness to collaborate, not just readiness, but proactiveness to collaborate with influential powers and strengthen its position on the international stage. Now, the meeting not only marked a pivotal moment in the movement, but also reinforces its commitment to achieving its ultimate goal, which is freedom for the Ambazonian people. Barrister Mbeseha, I believe you want to tell us about this meeting. The ANSC is taking advantage, and the Ambazonian government in its entirety is taking advantage of the United States election, the transition period, the new government that will be coming in place in the United States, them taking advantage of this. How do you think this constructive meeting could impact the Ambazonian struggle? Looking at the history from what Tibonat had already said before and this meeting, how do you think all of this could impact the ongoing Ambazonian struggle?
Well, I think I said yesterday that this meeting was planned before Trump was elected. But good enough, it is held after the election of Trump. So this meeting, I think, and I believe very strongly, was there. You see human beings sitting there to work out strategies on what to do next. And we know that our government is headed by the United States in Washington, D.C. The Trump administration will be based in Washington, D.C. Human beings will sit there. We hear what Tibonat said. These are the people who can meet. Not everybody will just move there and talk. And so we need a strategy which is being done, which in fact was started perhaps in this conclave of this weekend. But I will address it again because I saw something on different social media, people castigating this meeting. Why? Because while we were meeting to strategize, they were meeting somewhere, perhaps in the same Washington, D.C., in the name of what they call coalition for whatever thing, a coalition for the whatever thing, for unity and so on and so forth. And so while we have human beings sitting there, some people were meeting at the same time by Zoom, talking about their coalition and blaming President Sako for not coming. In fact, not blaming, insulting him for not joining them. And so who is fooling who? That meeting, which held over the weekend, did not prevent those talking unity from holding their meeting. We have not addressed them. We have no reason to address them. If truly they were sitting there in their Zoom meeting to plan how to move on, let them bring the strategies they worked out and put it to us. Us is there. That's shown there. We are seeing the pictures and the human beings who sat there. If they feel that they have something to add, then call those individuals or those people who matter and tell them this is a strategy. If it's a good strategy, why should we not buy it? Why do we have to spend time insulting people for not knowing what you have been doing? So I can say this emphatically to people like my good friend Baakuro, I saw him running a whole program about it. We are not bound to do what you like. We are bound to do what is right. Because what is right is what was done in this conclave of human beings, physical human beings, shaking hands, talking to one another, exchanging greetings. That's the right thing. We do not believe, this is my position, I'm not the government, we do not believe that to go meet the Trump administration, we need a Zoom conference that would embody people like, call something SCNC. They will involve people like APLC of Akwanga, who himself abandoned the fight officially in 2009. He called off the fight. He's not come back. So what do we need their group? We don't need people like consortium that was dissolved in 2018, 2017. We don't need them. Why do you think they are relevant? Let them come out with their own strategy. What we did in Washington, D.C. was the right strategy. We didn't prevent anybody from carrying out. So unity without substance has no meaning. What we did, like it or not, is substantive discussions. Appointing A physically, individually, or collectively, go and do this job for us. Not using a phone call, not using a Zoom conference. So as Ambazonian progresses, strategies change, we modify where we went wrong, we improve. And for 7 years, we've learned a lot. And I think what happened in Washington, D.C. is just the best improvement we could make as we approach a new administration in Washington, D.C. We know we're in democracy. Everybody will not agree with us. But that's the best we think we have done. We think it's a better approach without picking up spoil, without quarreling with anybody. You should let this government do its job. If the government of Marianta has something to deliver, let them deliver it. If the government of Sisi York in Yaoundé has something to deliver, let them deliver it. So too, Mr. Anu. So too, SCNC. So too, Mr. Akuru Mba Akuru under his consortium. Bring the material fruits to the table, and then we will know what to discuss. No longer over a Zoom conference. We have had previous meetings together, sitting down physically, which included all these people you mentioned about. They included Baakuru physically, and he left. What did he do? He left. They had meetings physically sitting down with our people in Canada. Baakuru left, and Baakuru supported it. Promised to give us the result of Canada, where his own allies were sitting physically, drinking, and taking cash for their premiums, for their participation. So this time we will stop all this nonsense. If you have come to a limit of your own contribution, stay away. Don't tell us, because these people who went to Washington, D.C., they are not idiots. They are educated people, sir. They are very educated people. They may not have PhDs, but they know what they are doing. And so just criticizing all these things, we must pass the era of social media, making programs on the ABC or making programs on Equinox or making programs. That is beyond that. But how many times have we seen the Cameroon government on social media talking? Not. Imba Akuru thinks he's right. Let him take his car, drive and come to my house. Or to somebody and say, bro, let us talk this over a bottle of water. Not thinking that we'll go to a Zoom meeting, that's what will bring us the solution. It will not. It will not. And let me emphasize again, as much as Table Nash said something important, those were the guidelines. I'm sure this conclave, they have not ignored those things. We've taken note of what Table Nash said. The ideas he gave are important, but to sit down on the table, strategize how to use every comma, every dot, every full stop to put his ideas into practice is more important than social media communication. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Barrister Mbeseha, as always. It's always a pleasure having you here on Undaunted with all the wisdom you give to the Ambazonian people on a daily basis. We certainly appreciate your presence yet again on Undaunted. But with that, we'll say thank you and good night and head on to the news around Africa.
Thank you for having me once more.
Coming up next is news around Africa. Well, on the African scene, Abdirahman Siro, leader of the Wadani opposition party, has emerged victorious in Somaliland's presidential election, securing 64% of the vote, against incumbent President Muse Bihi Abdi's 35%. This marks the fourth presidential election for Somaliland, a self-declared independent region that has sustained governance and security since breaking away from Somalia 33 years ago. Despite its political stability, Somaliland lacks international recognition, limiting its financial opportunities. The election took place amid tensions with Mogadishu over Somaliland's agreement to grant Ethiopia access to the Indian Ocean in exchange for recognition. Well, away from Somalia and Somaliland, we head off to South Africa and we see the illegal mining standoff. President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for a peaceful resolution to a tense standoff between police and illegal miners in Stilfontein, Northwest Province. Now, hundreds to thousands of those miners remain underground after the mine was declared a crime scene, although police initially blocked food and water supplies to force their surrender. A court order allowed supplies to reach them. Illegal mining, often linked to organized crime, is estimated to cost South Africa billions annually. Ramaphosa emphasized the need for mining companies to rehabilitate abandoned sites to curb illegal activities. Now in Uganda TikToker sentenced for insulting the president, a 21-year-old TikToker creator Emmanuel Mabugodi has been sentenced to 32 months in prison for a satirical video mocking Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni. Nabugodi's video depicted a mock trial and public flogging of the president, with authorities classified as hate speech under Uganda's amended 2022 Computer Misuse Act. Well, this law, criticized for suppressing dissent, criminalizes online content deemed degrading or malicious. Rights groups have flagged this case as part of a broader trend of shrinking freedoms of expression under Museveni's government. Well, the Uganda TikTok case, the sentencing of Emmanuel Nabugodi has sparked widespread debate about the boundaries of free speech and the Ugandan government's response to criticism. While the TikToker satirical video may have crossed ethical lines by personally targeting President Museveni, the punishment raises concerns about governmental overreach and repression. Uganda's amended Computer Misuse Act criminalizes content that ridicules or demeans others, effectively granting the government sweeping authority to police digital expression. Even though critics argue that this law disproportionately targets dissenting voices, stifling free speech under the guise of combating online abuse. Nabugodi's case exemplifies a growing trend where satirical or critical content is met with harsh penalties, undermining citizens' right to hold their leaders accountable. But human rights organizations have called the act a tool for silencing opposition, as evidenced by Nabugodi's case and similar convictions. President Museveni, in power since 1986, has faced accusations of using legal and extrajudicial means to suppress dissent. The arrest and sentencing of TikTok creators illustrate how laws intended to regulate digital behavior are being used to intimidate critics, as what the protesters had to say about it. While this creates a chilling effect on freedom of speech, discouraging citizens from speaking out against the government for fear of severe repercussions. Despite concerns about repression, Nabugodi's actions raises questions about responsible use of social media. By creating content that personally targets and ridicules a national leader, he may have crossed into areas that could reasonably be deemed offensive. Satire and critique are valuable tools in public discourse, but they should ideally focus on policies or governance rather than personal attacks. Nabugodi's depiction of a mock trial and flogging could be interpreted as incitement, particularly in a politically charged environment. Balancing rights and responsibilities, where the case highlights the delicate balance between safeguarding freedom of expression and ensuring accountability for harmful content. Government must avoid using legal frameworks as instruments of suppression while encouraging citizens to engage in constructive dialogue. Well, with that, we head on to the news across the globe. Well, on the global scene, a significant development has unfolded in the Ukraine-Russian conflict as German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called to Russian President Vladimir Putin has ended nearly 2 years of major NATO leaders isolating the Kremlin head. This move has sparked a glimmer of hope for potential peace talks in Ukraine. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has expressed concerns that this call may have opened Pandora's box, as it could undermine Ukraine's position in the conflict. Zelensky emphasized that it's crucial for Putin to weaken his isolation. The situation is complex, with various stakeholders involved. The United States has recently agreed to Zelensky's request to fire long-range American, that is, weapons into Russia, which adds another layer to the conflict. As the situation unfolds, it is essential to consider the various perspectives and potential outcomes. The international community is watching closely, with some countries already expressing their support for peace talks. And on the other hand, we see Vladimir Putin, who has made significant changes to Russia's nuclear doctrine, setting the stage for a potentially more aggressive approach to nuclear deterrence. According to the revised doctrine, an attack from a non-nuclear state backed by nuclear power will be considered a joint assault on Russia, effectively lowering the threshold for a nuclear response. Well, with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight, bringing into the news untold stories. But before we go, let's bring you the recap. On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you Ambazonian heritage preserved by the Ambazonian State Army, as well as the Ambazonian Concave and the tragedy amidst the ongoing war in Ambazonia, with human cost coming into the question. On the foreign scene, we saw Somaliland's presidential election and its victories. On the global reports, we also saw significant developments which has unfolded in the Ukraine-Russian conflict. And with that, we say good night and God bless you.